Welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden, your host. Glad you could join me as we adventure into the uplands with our good friends and our good dogs. Beautiful places and the camaraderie that comes from sharing the field with folks that you know and love. We got a great podcast in store for you. We're going back inside the industry today with a couple different things, hardware and software. Software of the four-legged variety, yeah. Mike Mapes will join us from Second Chance Bird Dogs, learn all about how they're doing and what they're doing. Seen this guy from the very beginning. What an incredible story that'll be. And then talk about incredible stories. This company's been around for a long time. There to serve shotgunners. From HIVIZ sites, we get Renee, Hernandez, and Trevor Young. We'll talk all things shotgunning. No matter what your style of shooting, we will talk about it this week on the Upland Nation podcast. And speaking of that, I asked a question on social media about your shooting style, and I think you'll be surprised at the answers, and you'll probably take something away from those as well. So stick around for all of that. It's made possible by Purina Pro Plan Sport and HIVIZ Shooting Systems and TrueLock Choke Tubes and MidwayUSA.com, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, Pointer Shotguns, and Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products. Well, a hot one again, but we got a little breeze this afternoon, so we got in a second session working with Flick on the wing shot and fall thing. No more half hitch. Birds flying a little bit farther by clipping their wings a little bit less, and adding a few gunshots just to keep things exciting. And another good one. Had a breeze, even though it's 85, 86 degrees out there. It was worth a short run and a good long hold after the bird hit the ground. So that's what we're working on these days. How about yourself? I hear a lot of people getting up early, doing some conditioning in the warm weather. Still got to cut the miles a little bit unless you are one of those night owl types and you can see in the dark. But working here, and sounds like working for many of you as well. Asked on Facebook recently because, as you know, shooting better is one of my priorities and one of yours as well. Asked you how you do it. You know, do you sustain lead? Do you swing through or poke and hope? Churchill method? You know, the whole bit. The answers were enlightening, that's for sure. Lance Larson, you ought to be a rider, Lance. Great woodcarver, pretty good rider too. Lance says, one eye on the bird, one eye on my dog, shoot, and then shoot again. He's seriously, the less I concentrate, the better I shoot. Yeah, I know the feeling. It's absolutely true. Lynn Glock says, you're holding a broom and sweeping the bird out of the sky, supposedly. Yeah. Charles Harris, does hope and pray count? Yeah. It better, or else I'm in big trouble. Let's see. Robert Smith says, take my time to watch, then swing through and get the right lead. You know, this is one thing I've been working on a lot, and I understand why. And Vandy Fiedler over at Mid-Valley Clays really clued me into this. First off, you soften your focus before the bird flies, so you're not looking at anything in particular, but you're looking at everything. And then take your time. Once the bird gets in the air, you got a lot more time than you think. Focus on that bird before you do anything else. While you're focusing on the bird, you're subconsciously moving anyway. Just don't bring the gun up until it's time to pull the trigger. Great tip, Wolfie. Thanks a lot. Instinctive, kind of, is Bruce Olson's approach. Stephen Wood says he misses mostly. Andy McCormick of Pointer Shotguns. Andy, great advice. It depends on the situation, the bird, the angle of retreat, etc., etc. Both eyes open, one of the constants. Nose to knuckle down on the gun. Open stance. Index finger on the forend pointed towards your prey. And follow through. Well, if you've been listening to the podcast for the last few weeks, you know those are all the bits of advice rolled into one. from every great shooter and great shooting instructor that we've had on the show recently. Sustained lead for Kip Sweem. Mike Robinson, same. Kevin McLaughlin says, focus on the bird. Visualize the bird exploding in a puff of feathers. Yeah, that's kind of, what is that? Sports psychology kind of a thing, that visualization. I like that. Then squeeze the trigger, cuss, rack another shell, cover his backside with the barrel, squeeze again, rack another, and maybe watch him fall. Yeah, isn't that the truth? Let's see, there were a couple others. For flushes, swing through. For incoming, sustained lead. For flushing woodcock, poke and hope. That's Leslie Hawkinson's wisdom for shooting. Let's see. Ralph Klimach never really thinks about his shot. The gun comes up and the bird goes down. Man, I wish I could say that. Great advice, and there's a lot more. Big list of comments there on the Facebook pages. So that's where most of the discussion takes place. Go to Wing Shooting USA or Upland Nation. Either of those, there's always a great question or two for you to consider and go from there. We're brought to you in part by Purina Pro Plan Sport Dog Food. Learn more about all their formulations at ProPlansport.com. You know, if you're an athlete, and we all are, maybe less serious than we could be, but we're still athletes, we need the same thing our dog needs, and that is VO2 max. Concentrated nutrition will optimize that for your dog. That is the ability to turn oxygen that we breathe into energy. That becomes increased endurance during a hunt. It comes from high protein with real meat as a first ingredient. The protein, in turn, creates amino acids that nourish the muscles, including the crucial time after exercise to promote recovery. So if you're going on a 2, 3, 5, 9-day hunt, think about Purina, Pro Plan Sport. Yeah, learn more at ProPlansport.com. Just got myself a new propane-powered coffee maker from MidwayUSA.com. Yeah, they got all that camping stuff too, but they have all the hunting stuff you'll need as well, including a vast array of ammunition. I know it's not like it was a couple years ago, but if you're having trouble finding ammo, you'll probably find it at MidwayUSA.com. And 20,000 of their products will ship free. So take a look at everything they carry, which is just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors at MidwayUSA.com. Customer satisfaction and engagement is their number one goal. Game on Board is a sponsor here at the Upland Nation podcast, and now we have them both. We have two of the, well, I'll call them almost the original employees at HIVIZ Sights. HIVIZ. Maybe we'll get into that as well. Renee Hernandez and Trevor Young join us from various places out there. The company, well, I'll let Renee start. Renee, welcome to the Upland Nation podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
You have been with the company since its founding. Tell me a little bit about the background of you and the company and where you guys are these days.
Great. Well, I'm Renee Hernandez. I'm actually the plant manager now here at HIVIZ, and I have been with the company for about 24 years now. HIVIZ actually started and was founded by Mr. Phil Howe in 1996. The company originally started in Colorado, over in Longmont, Colorado. At that point, Phil did have 3 products that they launched, which was 3 products that are currently right now still our top sellers. And then in I think it was around 2014, we decided to make the move to Laramie, Wyoming. And that's where we reside right now. Right now we seem to have, and we've grown quite a bit. We used to ship out of seemed like an office. Now we have 2 buildings that we continue to keep people working and continue to make products these days.
Yeah, that move to Wyoming was fascinating to me. I work with the state of Wyoming a lot on various projects, and they seem to be pretty aggressive about recruiting, especially companies in the firearms industry. Was that part of the motivation?
Yes, I mean, definitely Colorado had some changes in the gun laws, and definitely Phil at that point wanted to support a state that could support our industry.
Yeah.
And that was the reason why Phil decided to move the company to Wyoming. And then as we see now, a lot of other companies are starting to move this way as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Trevor Young, you're involved on slightly more on the what I'll call the technical side, and that's in the broadest sense of the term. But why don't you tell everybody a little bit about the principal types of products that HIVIZ manufactures and how they work?
Yeah, thanks for having us on the show, on the podcast. So we, as Renee said, we started out making shotgun sights. So our first product really was the magnetic, and I'll call them fiber optic.
Yeah.
Shotgun sights. So that was the first product. And then we expanded that into some other shotgun, you may say variations of a similar type of sight. And today we make sights for handguns, shotguns, rifles of all kinds. Of course, we don't make a sight for everything. That would be terribly difficult. But, basically what we do is we make a fiber optic type sights. We also have sights with tritium in them, or tritium and fiber optic. And they're really a product that's designed to help you get a faster sight picture, a better sight picture, be more aware of your sights in all shooting situations, and just aid people at being better shooters.
Well, that's why we're talking, because I could use all the help I can get. And you say acquire a better sight picture, and I wanted you to take me another step further on that, because, there are various philosophies about how you shoot a shotgun, pointing versus aiming, 2 beads, 3 beads, the sight picture, whatever you want to call it. How does a sight like this, which basically ends up being a bright something on the end of the shotgun barrel, how does that help you acquire the target?
Yeah, there are, in the shotgunning world, I really think for our company, our bread and butter, if you will, still today, and our kind of foundation is really in shotgun sights.
Yeah.
And I think we dominate as a accessory in that area. So of course and this goes for, both hunting, recreational, and of course competition shooting. So you're going to certainly encounter differing opinions in that world, competition shooters, no doubt about it. But in general, there are definitely some people and that are of the mind that you don't want a bead to be more impressing, than it already is, because you don't want it as let's say, a distraction, some might say. But I think we find quite the opposite with the bulk of shooters, and we support competition shooters, in the tops of their games in almost every type of shotgunning competition, and of course hunting. And for me, I think really there's some interesting things that we see. One, I think that having the sight so visible actually produces the opposite effect, that you do not look at it as much. Because that, especially if you're, say, in a hunting situation or a sport game where you're using a low mount, you're not pre-mounted, that sight becomes so ingrained and so visible in your peripheral vision that I don't think you look at it or notice it nearly as much. And the truth is when we shotgun, it's a hand-eye coordination type of shooting discipline. You have to know where the muzzle of that shotgun is in relation to the target, but yet not focus on it. So I really think that's what our product does, is it allows you to pick it up faster. Interesting, our old vice president, Rick, who's a longtime shotgunner, level 3 instructor, they did, some sort of not so laboratory type experimental shooting, but when we talk to some of our pro staff, say that shoot, like, say, skeet, or especially skeet, what we'd find is they weren't necessarily breaking always more targets, but they were breaking them faster and sooner.
Now that's fascinating. You've just boiled it down. Thank you. We're done. But you just made it so simple to me. You're in my mind at least. I see the logic there. You're actually not looking at the muzzle, but it's there. And you use the term, I think, peripheral vision. But
Yeah.
we do have to have a relationship, but we just don't need to fixate on the muzzle end versus the target end. Am I hearing that correctly?
That's what I would say. And before I started working for the company, and I shoot sporting type shotgun stuff, not really as a competition, more as a recreation, but I hunt. And the type of hunting I do a lot more, say, than upland bird is waterfowl.
Mm-hmm.
And I would find that in the morning, so before I worked for the company, I looked at getting a sight because I was hunting, in that half hour before, real sunrise where I can hunt. I could see silhouetted birds, but I was having a hard time finding the end of my shotgun. So really what it is it just, it makes it to where, because let's face it, as shotgunners, if we take a millisecond to look for the end of the muzzle, we've probably missed the shot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in fact, that is probably the argument that most shooting instructors will use for pointing versus aiming. They don't really mean that, I bet. I bet they mean just don't look at the end of the barrel first.
Correct. And I suffer from all the plagues that other people do. Some maybe more so, stopping, lack of follow through, I've got to watch my mount, all those things. Knowing where my muzzle is in relation to the target is just no longer one of the issues I have.
I love
it. The sight, it becomes, another really interesting thing that I've seen in working here. I've been at HIVIZ 16 years, and I've managed customer service, and I've talked to a lot of customers. So I've talked about every conceivable, probably, shotgunning issue that all shotgunners see. But one thing I found really interesting is with our product, we offer a variety of diameters, of viewing end diameters for the fibers, and how much product you select. And it's not 100% across the board, but in general, this is what we see is people want the biggest dot they can get to start. And I think the more they use the product, they always graduate down to a smaller bead because it is so visible and it becomes such a useful tool that they don't need it so imposing, and it allows them to really see the target, but yet be aware of the muzzle.
Yeah, I believe it. It makes sense. I mean, whether it's us or the dog we're training or any other skill we're acquiring, yeah, we need the massive crutch, and then we go to the walking cast, and then we go to the ace bandage, and I get all that. In fact, that's a good place for Renee to come in and tell us, we're talking about these sights, but they're not sights, they're not little beads. They're all sorts of brightly colored other things. Renee, how would you physically describe a fundamental high-vis sight? It's just not a little bead on the end of the muzzle.
Exactly. When Phil made the first products, basically what he wanted to do is he wasn't looking at the competitors and what they were doing. He thought, how could we be innovative in making products that work for us and work for our customers? And a lot of our sights are made for our sights. So the light pipes themselves, they're not just extruded rod. They're actually molded to make for the sights that we're making. So if you're looking at a shotgun sight, we might have 3 or 4, I can't remember exactly the number of different light pipes we have, but the light pipes are made for the sights themselves.
Yeah.
What we try to do is get as much light gathering as we can to make sure that the brightest out there.
In light gathering, I get it. And if anybody shoots, say, handgun or a long gun, they probably understand sights and light gathering too, or archery guys for that matter. But I'm looking at an assortment of there's at least 7 in this card right here in front of me, all different colors, and they're at least an inch and a quarter long. Is that part of the light gathering? Is the fact that there's so much surface area?
It can be on some sites, but if you would look at like our Trivis site, that's, one of our top turkey sites, it's got triangles on it. When we first, Bill first came out with this site, everybody thought it was impossible. It was a triangle. Was anybody going to ever buy on it? And actually won a product award at SHOT Show. And really that site was to get as much light to the tip of the triangle. So again, depending on the site, we had to make the light pipe be able to be the brightest. Doesn't always have to be the longest to gather the light, but it has to be the technology to be able to push that light to the front.
And is that a matter of the material it's made out of, or is it a matter of it could be a different color. There are various colors I'm looking at right now.
Exactly. We have tested many different colors, but the thing is on the design. So with the Trivis, we had to try to cut angles and everything in it to actually gather the light to the tip. So it's just not like a triangle that you're looking at. If you look at the Trivis, you'll actually see the tips of it light up.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what I'm talking about, of being able to, it's around the engineering. How do we get that light to the front and be able to be brighter than everybody else?
I love it. You're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. We're going to school on HIVIZ sites here. We have Renee Hernandez and Trevor Young of the company. Company's based in Wyoming now, which is a good enough excuse for me to come visit. But I'm intrigued by the thought behind all this. And back in the day when Phil Howe was coming up with this idea, what do you think inspired that? Trevor, you got any thoughts on that?
I think it is really just a idea of something more visible, something bolder. And of course, the magnetic site being the first site we made, that was very innovative. I actually think we are still the only company that makes a magnetically attached stick. So it was really going outside of the norm, especially at that time. Fiber optic sites or other types of different methods on all types of sites these days is a lot more common. But in 1996, it sure was. So that was definitely a kind of a hard road to push.
Oh, I bet. And, I look at it because I've installed a couple on a couple of my shotguns that I'll be using this fall. And one thing that struck me was how simple it is. And none of my guns would take any of the magnetic sights, but it was very simple for me to put those sights on, even as a music major. There's not much to them as long as you match the right model to the right gun. That's got to have been part of the motivation right there, making it simple for guys like me. Renee, do you face any of that kind of stuff when you're designing and manufacturing? I mean, what are the biggest challenges in that world?
Sometimes it can take months to design something. So sometimes it might be just making sure that's manufacturable. Right now we do so many different things that we want to make sure that it works for us, that it makes sense dollar-wise, as well as making sure we're coming out with the best product available. We definitely don't cut corners. One thing Phil did from day one is customer service is number one for our company. So no matter if you have our site 10 years ago or you had it 2 days ago, no matter what happens with that site, we make sure that we stand behind the product. So again, there's a lot of moving components within our company. Our engineers are great trying to design. Phil, to this day, is still working with engineers with new products. So again, just going out there and really trying to find out something new that we can come out with and making sure that it's something that can be sold in the industry.
Well, I appreciate some of the things you folks are doing in that world as well. We'll get to them in the second half of the program. You're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. That's Renee Hernandez, along with Trevor Young of HIVIZ Sites. Just make sure we get the website address if anybody wants to learn more than they are hearing here. Trevor, what is your URL these days?
It is HIVIZ Sites. SIGHTS.com.
And Hi is just HI.
HIVIZ. Yes.
Great. We'll be back in just a moment. And welcome back to the Upland Nation podcast. Scott Linden here. I'm joined by two folks from HIVIZ Sites, Renee Hernandez and Trevor Young. Appreciate you guys making time for me and all my dumb site questions, because I need any assistance I can get when it comes to shooting. Yeah, I've mentioned my cross dominance a million times over the years, and I've done everything in the world to try and fix it, including learning to shoot left-handed. But you guys can actually help us with some of that as well, can't you, Trevor?
Absolutely. Yeah, we make a couple products for cross-eye dominant shooters, and that's a very complex subject, I'm sure, as you know. I like to more refer to it as origin line of sight. But the products we make, and there are some other products traditionally that have been available and are also still on the market, and they sort of all really work on the same principle. And what it is it blocks the view of your bead from your dominant eye or your non-shooting eye. I think personally that our products do it better. And what we do, the two products, they're generically, the design is called Magna Optics, and we make a screw attached version, which is the Magna Comp, and we make a magnetic version called the Magna Hunter. And the principle. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, geez, that's what I want to know. How does it work?
Yep. So how it works, again, it's a fiber optic sight. So let's say you have a green or red color, and you want your shooting eye to see that color. So it forces you to obviously establish your line of sight from your shooting eye to the bead to the target. And what it does is it blocks the view of that fiber from your non-shooting eye. And how it does it is, I would equate it very similarly to a rifle scope. So there's a small magnifying chamber in the viewing end of the sight that has a lens and an aperture that projects the color of the fiber onto that lens. And it's built with a sensitivity that, at average distance, the 3 or 4 inches between your eyes, 5 inches, at the distance to the bead, if you say mount the gun right-handed, and you have both eyes open, and you close your right eye, you will not see the fiber optic color with your left eye, and vice versa if you're shooting from the other side. So what it really allows you to do is to shoot with both eyes open, and still forces you to establish your line of sight with your shooting.
It strikes me, as so many other things, and I've taken lessons from some incredible instructors over the years. Everybody has devices, gizmos, gadgets for all sorts of shooting problems, if you want to call them that. They're all teaching tools, and this to me sounds like a heck of a teaching tool to build that hand-eye, pardon the pun, coordination. It's beyond that. There's probably a better term for it, but it just forces your head, literally and figuratively, to do the right thing, doesn't it?
It really does. This is a product we make that I think is greatly underappreciated in the market. We will do things like, the magnetic sight, for example, gets generically 4 different riblets. I've given out sets of those to instructors, and so they can identify, because as you probably know, 40% or upwards of shooters are cross-eye dominant. So this becomes a real issue with people being successful. And if you can identify those people and get them a sight that'll help them be successful, that's a tremendous thing, especially when they're a younger shooter. But it also is effective for non-cross-eye dominant shooters. It does help you be more disciplined. The sensitivity of the sight will not say stop you from lifting your head off the stock or those types of things, but it will help you stay disciplined and be, not be, let's say, maybe lazy on some shots, especially if you've been shooting a lot during one day.
Yeah, I believe it. And there's another one out there, and Renee, maybe you can address this as well. By the way, you have a great page of shotgunning advice. Well, it's shooting of all sorts, but the top of the page is all shotgunning tips, which I appreciate. And one of them was how you can use your middle bead on the barrel and the muzzle bead, probably a HIVIZ shot sight, to check gun fit to a degree. And everybody's looking to get better gun fit. And this is intriguing to me. Can you talk a little bit about how that works, Renee?
Yeah, actually, I'd like to turn that over to Trevor.
Okay.
Trevor would be the one to answer that a little bit more thoroughly for you.
Great. All right. Trevor, what do you say?
Yeah, it's very important, and avid shotgunners are probably familiar with gun fit as it relates to barrel regulation and patterning of shotgun. When I first came to the company, I was a very novice shotgunner, not really educated in shotgun methods, and it's much more in depth than a novice would expect. So a mid bead, traditionally is to help you keep your left to right, make sure you're centered on it. But yes, the mid bead also helps you establish, if your shotgun is patterned for you, wherever that mid bead is in relation to your front bead is going to help, and side to side is going to help ensure that you've mounted the gun properly. And especially in hunting, you got a very short time to mount that gun right. So practicing gun mount and knowing where the relationships of those two beads are to each other will really help you be successful.
We have all sorts of other exercises we do in that world, whether it's mounting with your eyes closed in front of a mirror, things like that. This is one more way to kind of refine that gun mount and thus gun fit. I love that idea. Renee, can you talk a little bit about what we might be seeing in the future? What are you guys working on, without having to kill me after this conversation? What are you working on for the future?
Well, we got some exciting new product coming your way for the customers as well as the industry. Unfortunately, I'm not able to talk too much about it, but I say keep an eye out, watch it coming. It should hopefully be released for SHOT Show. And I think it's hitting again into that innovation that HIVIZ is known for. It'll be a great new site. I think it's exciting. We've been working really hard to get it into manufacturing. We've already sent out a couple samples, having people test shoot it, and so far it looks very well. So I wish I could talk about it, but it looks like we're going to have to wait until SHOT Show.
I'll let you all know about it when I get back from SHOT Show. Don't worry, it'll be high on my list.
Great.
And Renee, I'm looking at one of these packages, and it's got a bunch of what I think you usually call light pipes, and they're made out of all sorts of materials. But you guys are working in the space age right now. Trevor, you mentioned tritium. I don't think it's on these light pipes, but what are some of the materials you use in these sites?
A lot of it right now is injection molding, so it is plastic that we injection mold. We do, as you mentioned, tritium, which we actually load in some of our sites. So it just kind of depends. If you're talking just the light pipe itself, it's mostly plastic that we use, and that's what usually makes the majority of them. That's the reason why we can actually design what we need is through being able to design that light pipe. Again, it's not no extruded rod. It's actually a light pipe designed for our sites that we make.
Yeah, and it comes in various shapes as well, doesn't it?
Correct. That'll allow us to injection mold all the different shapes as well. We do have round. We have different diameters for folks out there that want a bigger bead that maybe they're not able to see as easy, so they like the larger bead. Or maybe somebody that wants just a smaller bead. They come in all different sizes, all different lengths, just depending on what kind of site you're actually putting it on.
You can customize it any way you like. Hey, I can't let you go without talking hunting a little bit. Trevor, maybe you're the guy to talk to about this. If you were going to offer up any shotgun hunting advice, whether it's waterfowl, which is your passion, or upland birds, or anything in between, what do you see as some of the things that would help us become a better shooter out there?
Well, of course, fundamentally, proper gun fit, pattern your shotgun, know where it's hitting in relation to how it fits you, and make sure that's correct. Because it's, for years I threw a lot of shot into the air that wasn't on the target. So No matter how long your shell is or how much the payload is, if it doesn't hit the target, surprisingly, it doesn't help much.
I've heard about that. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then of course, put a HIVIZ sight on. And I think, whether you're a not cross-eye dominant or cross-eye dominant, they both help. We got a lot of products, and like Renee said, we got different colors, different shapes, and some of those have different benefits for different shooters. Green, the color green generically, you have to define what that means by a value, but that's generically the color the average eye is going to see best in all light conditions. But some people prefer reds or orange. We've got different dot size diameters and triangles. Triangles can be, I think we may still be the only person that offers a triangle in a shotgun sight. And it's a surprisingly effective tool on a lot of certain presentations for targets, especially upland bird hunting.
Really?
Driven targets or fast crossers, you can really benefit from using a triangle.
How the heck would a triangle be better than a round?
Well, and I would say this, that, let's take a little note from sporting clays. Maybe, a lot of sporting clay shooters will, if they're looking at a target that's being thrown prior to shooting it, they may use a pencil and kind of hold that up and watch the target to see, let's say you got a crosser that's on a slight dropping slope, and the target looks like it's flying straight, but then when you watch it compared to the terrain, it's dropping with the terrain kind of thing. You can do the same thing with the tip of that triangle. And again, we're not aiming, but you can use the tip of that triangle to sort of draw a line through the target. And the triangle's interesting because even an average shooting experience compared to a circle, the tip of that triangle being relieved like it is, has a little more reveal on the target, and especially if you have a driven target. That target's changing size, that triangle
coming
really
at
helpful.
you, yeah.
Yeah.
I never thought about that, but it starts to make psychological sense more than anything else. It's a head game at that point.
Yeah, and it is when you use one, and a lot of our sites that have triangle shapes generally are interchangeable. So they'll come with both round and triangle, so you can change them and try them in this, same type of, or use them for different shooting instances.
Well, there you go. I mean, I'm looking forward to learning how to shoot better by using these tools and perhaps others as well. HIVIZ sights.com. Renee Hernandez, Trevor Young, both of that company, longtime folks at that company. Appreciate your advice, your insights, and thanks a bunch for being a part of the Upland Nation podcast.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, we appreciate taking the time to have us on the show.
Oh, always great to talk with them, and glad they were finally able to be available to us here at the Upland Nation podcast. You'll be learning way more about HIVIZsights.com. In fact, yeah, that's the next commercial. See what you've been missing with a HIVIZ site. If you want to learn more about them, go to HIVIZsights.com. Go to the Learn tab, which is full of shotgunning tips. And if you're a rifle shooter or a handgunner, they got lots of those as well. But right at the top, our favorite subject, shotguns. Solutions from cross dominance to gun fitting, all right there at HIVIZsights.com. They're advancing the art of shooting through their unique molded light pipe technology, tritium fiber optic sights. They're a leader in the shooting world, founded to help shotgunners way back in 1996. And pointershotguns.com is where you get the gun. You put the HIVIZ sight on. All of their shotguns come with a 7-year warranty. Compare that to anybody else in the marketplace. 7-year warranty. Yeah, on the new side-by-sides, on the over and unders, on the semi-automatics, no matter the coloring. Case coloring, nickel receiver, bluing of all sorts, Cerakoting in OD green, bronze, and gray. And the best part about those side-by-sides, and I'm hearing from a lot of you about them, I'm glad you like them. The manufacturer's suggested retail price is just $759. Learn more at pointershotguns.com. Well, if you're not stocking up now for the upcoming bird season, you'd better get on it. And I would start at sageandbreaker.com. They offer everything that you'll need to clean and care for your gun, store it and transport it. It's all there, sageandbreaker.com. The brand new bore cleaning solvent joins the semi-brand new range bag, finally back in stock. Sold out the first time. They got one waiting with your name on it right now. Take a look at all the 5-star reviews. Incredible product, heirloom quality products. Stock up on those consumables for the upcoming season. Clean your gun a little bit more regularly. Lubricate it a little bit more frequently. All those things might add up to another bird or two this season. Sign up for the email list so you don't miss out on future sales and new products coming down the road. It's all at sageandbreaker.com. And TrueLockChokes.com has a choke tube for just about everything. If you didn't get that turkey this past season, well, maybe you need to look at your choke tubes. If you're hoping to add a bird to the bag every few days, take a look at one of the over 2,000 different shotgun chokes for virtually every shotgun made. And all the sub-gauges, too. Learn more about choke tubes and what they do and why they do it on the frequently asked questions page. It's a tutorial on choke tubes. And of course, everything at TrueLockChokes.com comes with a lifetime warranty and a satisfaction guarantee. And finally, I'm heading there right after this broadcast to Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. These folks are hunters and instructors, so they know what works on the range, of course, and in the field, too. They also are great dog owners, love the little cockers, and I get to play with them when I get over there tonight. MidValleyClays.com is sub-gauge central, so if you're looking for a gun and something other than a 12-gauge, they've always got a bunch in stock. And if you're over there, like me, their rental fleet of 40 or more guns always has a whole bunch of models for you available to try before you buy. Learn more about all the shooting games. In fact, that's why I'm going. We're going to play the new HIVIZ game. Some people call it ZZ Bird. It's all at MidValleyClays.com. Well, it's great to have him finally on the Upland Nation podcast. I've been watching this guy since he started out on his newest journey, let's put it that way. Mike Mapes joins me from somewhere in the upper Midwest, and that's all I'll say. Mike, welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
You are with Second Chance Bird Dogs, and I was intrigued, first off, by the name of that operation. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing with that?
Yeah, I think the first time we talked was really when I started about 2 years ago. I basically woke up in the morning after I had already trained and rehomed a couple different dogs that needed the service, and sat up in bed one morning and Second Chance Bird Dogs came to my head, and I thought, well, that's a good name. And I went and made a Facebook group, and that's when it started. But we take in, I don't really want to say unwanted dogs, but dogs that need a change of pace or a reset button. Dogs that are having issues or that people can't contain. We take them in, mainly bird dogs. We train them to hunt, and we rehome them into families that know the breed and that actively hunt. And so far, it's been pretty successful.
Well, congratulations, and I've been reading success stories over and over again about you. If you want to learn more about Second Chance Bird Dogs, what's the best way to do it? Is it that Facebook group?
We have a Facebook group, Second Chance Bird Dogs. The reason I started a group was I wanted people to really be able to feel like they're part of it. I wanted people to be able to interact with it and comment and like the post and all that. And then we have an Instagram and then a TikTok. And I do have a YouTube channel. I don't use it nearly enough, though.
So what was the original motivation for this? I've worked with a dozen bird dog rescue groups of various sorts, and they all they're good-hearted. They're working hard at it, but you are doing things, I think, a little bit differently than them. What puts you apart from all of them?
Yeah, I think, when I started this, I got my 2 dogs that I still have today as rescues, and I trained to hunt, and I realized real quick that people wanted started dogs, and you look in the pounds, you look in the shelters, and you'll find bird dogs in them. And there's a lot of bird dog rescues out there, and God bless them, they're doing great work. But I think I'm one of the only ones that really is separated myself by training the dogs. I keep all the dogs in-house. We have 15 kennels here at the house now. I keep all the dogs here. I train all the dogs to hunt. By the time they're adopted, they're pointing birds, they're holding their points, they've been shot over, they're retrieving. I check all the boxes for the people that want a good started dog. And a lot of people out there are more than willing to rescue a dog, but there's always that question in the back of your mind, is it going to hunt? Is it gun shy? And that's why it's here.
Yeah.
And I think I take a lot of those questions out of the picture, and that's why it's been so successful, because people can trust the process, and I keep people involved every step of the way.
Do we need to be down the road from you in the next county over, or if I'm in Oregon and you're over there in Michigan, can I get a dog from you?
Oh yeah, I've had dogs go to Wyoming. I've had dogs come from Texas. I've got dogs on the East Coast, West Coast, all the way down to Florida. I've taken dogs to, and I don't like to ship dogs. I'll ship them to me, but as far as someone adopting, I want to meet that person face to face. I want to get to know them. But I've had people drive, like I said, from Wyoming to get a dog from me before.
Well, if you're going to pick up a started bird dog, it's worth the drive, or else you really shouldn't have one, should you?
Right, exactly.
That might be the most important prerequisite of all.
Right, yep.
Well, how did you become qualified to do this? I know you do some guiding, but did you just learn this all on your, flying by the seat of your pants?
I would say yes to that, and I still don't think I'm qualified to do it. But I've had bird dogs my whole life, and I think that the thing that really qualifies me the most is I've got a house that's a mile and a half off the road. I've got access to hundreds of acres of land around me. I've got a hunting preserve down the road, and the biggest thing most of all is I've got really good friends that are well known in the bird dog world that help me out. I mean, I've got 5 or 6 pro dog trainers that have forgotten more than I'll ever know, and they literally, I call them and they'll answer, and we can talk on the phone for an hour. So if I run into any problems, I'm giving those guys a call, and these dogs have taught me more in 2 years than I think I could have ever learned from any video, any book out there.
Well, except my book called What the Dogs Taught Me.
You got me there, yep.
But I'm the same way. And don't they teach you? What have they taught you that we all ought to know?
Patience. Every dog's different. And I think the biggest one, and I preach this on a weekly basis to people because I get messages every week. People want me to train their dogs now, and because they think I'm some dog whisperer. And I can make this happen and make that happen. I tell everybody, I said, your expectations are too high right now.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing that these dogs have taught me is you have to, I don't want to say lower your expectations, but patience with those expectations. Nothing's going to happen overnight. Nothing's going to happen in 30 days. I only have these dogs for 30 to 45 days tops. And they're not going to be perfect, but they'll be started. And if you work those dogs and you get them out and you get them exposed and you learn the cues and you learn how to tweak things here and there and how to read the dog, you can learn a lot from your dog, and your dog will learn a lot from you and the birds right along with you.
So in your case, started dog, maybe the term may change depending on the dog, right?
Correct, yes. I have some dogs that they come here and they're pointing their first week, and then I have 2 weeks to work on retrieving, but then I have other dogs that it takes 3 weeks to get them to point their first bird. Yeah. And they have to be woe trained, or I have to get a woe post out. Some dogs, it happens naturally. Other dogs, it takes a while. So the process is different for every dog, especially when you're getting those 4-year-old wire hairs that have been shot over. They've been shot over for 4 years, and nobody's ever made him point. And now I'm sitting here making him point, and he's looking at me like, I haven't had to do this yet in 4 years. Why do I have to start now?
Yeah, you know? For a while, one of mine I thought was going to be the world's first German wire-haired flusher.
True that.
Yeah. Mike, number one, great job. Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
Love it. Second Chance Bird Dogs is where you learn more on Facebook about Mike's organization. What is the most common reason these dogs come to you? Why do people give up these dogs?
I want to say that every dog's different, but I think more specifically every breed is different.
Yeah.
Short hairs and wire hairs are my most common. I have 9 wire hairs right now. Every single one of those is here because of aggression issues toward humans or dogs, and every one of them is from a non-hunting home.
Wow.
I'm not saying that that's a factor, but that's a big one, okay?
Yeah.
Most short hairs that I get, it's because of energy and no recall. The dog won't listen to them. The dog's counter surfing. Those types of things. I rarely get other breeds, but I do. I've gotten a Munsterlander before. I've got a setter sitting out there right now. But the wire hairs and short hairs are the bread and butter of Second Chance Bird Dogs, you know?
And so your belief is these dogs are all salvageable?
I don't want to say all, but most, yes.
Yeah.
I have 2, I noticed, I said that I had 2 dogs that I kept, right? And those dogs are dogs that the one is he's a Deutsch Kutzar, German short hair, from he had 6 homes before me.
Wow.
And there is no off switch. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about anything. All he wants to do is hunt. People don't want that. People want a dog that wants to sit with them and watch TV, right? And then go hunting. So he'll be one I keep, and then I have another one that's aggressive toward other dogs. Great hunting dog, phenomenal dog. He's my head guide dog. I'll never get rid of him. He can't be rehomed to someone else. Most dogs are salvageable because most of the problems lie, in the previous home. And I hate to tell people that, but I think people also need to hear that too. So.
Yeah. Well, if we were to want to support you in whatever way we can, are you looking for anything in particular? Do you need gear? Do you need money? Do you need some kind of volunteer help?
I don't have a donate button on my Facebook, and I think honestly that's another big reason why people like me, right? So every time I rehome a dog, there's a rehome fee, and the dogs support the business. The dogs support the rescue. They pay for the food. But however, if you are on the Facebook page, probably about 3 times a year, you'll see me post on there and say, hey, we're getting low on funds. Can some people donate? And I'll post my Venmo Second Chance Bird Dogs up there, and I'll get people donate right away. And I love it when people do that. I'm very thankful for it. But we try to keep this going specifically with ourselves, and I wouldn't steer away from some sponsors. That'd be kind of nice, but if you're on the Facebook page, you'll know because you'll see me ask for donations, and that's when I need them the most is when I ask for them.
I said so. Join the group, and then you'll get in the loop on all of that, right?
Oh, correct. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, tell me a little bit about how you evaluate a dog once you bring it in to see what it needs next.
Yeah. So every dog I get is on a different, I want to say, playing field. So I have at any given time, and it's been quite full recently. I'll have 12 dogs here, and they're all rescues. And I'll have usually groups of 4, and I'll be working 4 dogs a week on birds. I'll be working 4 dogs a week on training with an e-collar, and the other 4 dogs will be dogs I just got. We'll be just getting to know each other.
Yeah.
So, that's the big part of it. I take them for puppy walks. I start over just as you would with a puppy. We go for puppy walks with a full-size dog. You're on a check cord. We're going back and forth. I'm going to make sure you're paying attention, see if you're actively hunting. And then second week, we'll start puppy bird intro. We'll get you introduced to birds and see if we have any natural point. If we have some natural point, I love it. That's great. It makes things 10 times easier. We can fly through the program. But like I said, every dog's different. We start out just like you would with a puppy, though. Start out with puppy training. Everything's simple. Everything's easy. And then we kind of, you progress from there with every dog as far as how far along they get when they get there.
If you're working with everybody's worst nightmare of a dog, That's in large part why they are there. But out of that, you've probably learned some stuff. The term trial by fire comes to mind. You've learned stuff about the hardest hard cases that if we knew and we applied them to our less than hard case dogs, might be helpful. What are some of the lessons you've learned about training those kind of dogs?
It's so funny. I'm having a what do you call it? I'm having a seminar here in July at the local hunt club, and I'm going to go over this exact same thing. And it's all the simple things. It's the simple, small things like crate training your puppy when you get him. I don't care if your dog's never going to be in a crate the rest of his life, probably. No one's ever going to want to crate their dog every night for the rest of their life. But for the first 6 months, it's a must. I mean, to get that dog crate trained, to get that dog leash trained, to get the good recall on that puppy when he's a puppy, to work on all those small, simple things, you can't believe how big of a problem they will become when that dog's 2 years old.
Yeah.
I have a 101-pound wire hair out here. Yeah. And the reason he's here is because he would jump in the mom and dad's bed at night, and when they would go to get to sleep, he would growl at them and bite at them and wouldn't let them in bed. And they called me, and they were sleeping on the couch in the living room almost every night because the dog wouldn't let them in the bed.
Oh, that's almost a Gary Larson cartoon.
It's awful.
Yeah.
The dog had never been in a kennel. He'd never been on a leash because they were afraid to walk him anywhere because they were afraid of him, and they were afraid of everybody with him.
Yeah.
So he'd never been in a crate. He'd never been on a leash. He'd never been tied up before. This dog was a mess. And for the last 2 weeks, that's all he'd been doing: crate training, leash training, chain gang.
Yeah.
And that dog has come so far. I tell everybody, it's the simple things that are so easy to do when you have a 5-pound puppy that are harder to do when you have a 100-pound dog in front of you.
Okay, so just for that, let's focus on the leash because I want to ask you a few questions about that in particular. But how do you introduce this stuff to a 100-pound wire hair that's got a mean streak?
I think I have an advantage, and the advantage I've learned, if it's one thing I have learned here, is when the dog comes here, it's almost like it's a new place.
Yeah.
And it's like we're hitting the reset button.
Uh-huh.
So I have 10 days. I've got it down to 10 days where that dog, everything's new, that dog's moldable, and I can do whatever I want with that dog in the first 10 days.
Wow.
And I'll actually kind of restrict that dog. I'll keep him out in the kennel. I won't let him roam the yard. I won't let him off leash. I'll keep everything kind of new to him. And in the meantime of doing that, I'll do all these things. We'll do crate training. We'll do leash training. We'll do this. We'll do that. All those things that, you're like, this dog's pulling me 100 mile an hour. It's like, no, everything's new. So he's kind of looking around, and I'm heeling him at leash. And, I take the crate. We go out to the kennels, and then the crate's right there in the kennel, and we do some crate training. And after 10 days, they start to get comfortable, and that's when things really kick in. But the biggest thing is just confidence. The dog has to know you're in charge, and most of these dogs are coming from homes where the humans weren't in charge.
Yeah.
There was no alpha, there was no leader, and the dogs know when they come here. I established that with them, that this isn't your old home. I'm in charge. Things are different here, and you would be amazed the changes that these dogs make in a short period of time here, and they keep those changes. The new homes that they go to, I still stay in contact with them. I've rehomed over 100 dogs, so it's kind of hard to. But the troubled dogs, the problem dogs, I keep in contact with those people. And, it's been a year and a half down the road with some of these dogs, and they've never went back to their old ways yet. Wow. They've all been on the straight and narrow so far.
Okay, so the biggest question I get, besides how come I can't shoot better on TV, the second biggest question is, how can I get my dog to walk at heel? He just wants to pull ahead, or he wants to go off to the side. How are you, whether it's that 101-pound wire hair or any other dog, if leash training is so important, what are you doing that we could do better?
So it's tools, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of tools out there that are available to anybody, and I think a lot of people are afraid of them, right? Yeah. The first thing that I do is I do a half hitch around the waist.
Yeah.
I'll have the leash attached to the collar, run the lead down the back, run a half hitch around, and put some pressure on the belly.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, dogs don't like that pressure, and they'll submit to that pressure. That 101-pound wire hair is a baby when it comes to that. First time I did that, he sat right there and looked at me like, oh, that doesn't feel good. Yep, now let's walk. And we walk at heel. And he does very good with it. There's other dogs that I have to put a prong collar on.
Yeah.
Prong collar is a lifesaver. It does not hurt. I put them on myself before. All it does is apply pressure. It's little tools like that you can use, and you don't have to use them. Again, it's like the crate. You're not going to have to use it the rest of your life. But it's a tool that you can use to make your life a lot easier for that week of learning to leash train.
That is so true, and I've learned that many times over. It takes me a while to learn these things, but my wife's a real believer in the e-collar for that too. That's the only reason. That's the only reason I can walk alongside her at the shopping mall.
Yep.
Well, if you were going to leave us with one more bit of advice for training dogs that are maybe a little bit harder to train. I don't mean the lost causes, but the wire hairs of the world. What other advice or gear or anything else like that would you think we should have, or you think we should do?
My biggest piece of advice, and it's something that I've lived by. I learned it from a pro trainer, a good friend of mine, and it's that dog that's always. I'll give you an example. I had a slick coat wire here from Wisconsin, and the dog was a flushing machine, just like you said, German wire-haired flusher. And that dog would get 30 yards downwind of that scent, and he would look at me, and he would flip me the bird, and he would flush every single time. I mean, he did it to spite me.
Yeah.
And so it was 3 birds a day, over and over and over. It was the same thing. It only lasted about 10 minutes every time. I'd put the launchers out. We'd go out. It didn't matter if I had him on a wall post or not. The dog just wanted to flush. But he'd been flushing for 4 years, so he didn't care. There was one day. It was a Wednesday night. I put 3 birds out. And for whatever reason, he went around the bird a little differently, and he paused for a split second. I'm talking 3 seconds. His tail was wagging, but he stopped. And I looked at him, I flushed the bird, and I said, good boy. Now that was bird number 1. I stopped him right there. I recalled him to me, I put the leash on, we went in the kennel.
Yeah.
And a good friend of mine said, you always stop on a good note. 9 times out of 10, when I don't stop on that good note, bad things follow, and then it's just worse. So every time I'm frustrated with the dog, I just keep plugging away, but the second I see what I want, we stop for the night, go back to the house, play fetch with them, sit down, watch some TV, but just stop it right there. The dogs remember that. And that moment will stay with that dog as well as it stays with you. These dogs are smart. They get it. So if you see what you want, stop. Don't keep going. Start on another day.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Mike Mapes is with Second Chance Bird Dogs. Learn more about them on Facebook, all the things he is doing, and all. Man, I wish I could come to your seminar. I've learned a lot already, and we just barely scratched the surface. Mike, we'll talk again down the road. Number 1, thank you for doing this. What an incredible service. Number 2, congratulations. It's going so well. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your summer, and hey, I may be up in your neck of the woods this fall, so watch out.
That's good.
All right. Thanks again for being a part of the Upland Nation podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Renee Hernandez and Trevor Young of HIVIZ Sites, Mike Mapes of Second Chance Bird Dogs. Sure appreciate your time, your efforts, and your passions. If you commented at one of the social platforms, hey, maybe you heard your name in the last few weeks. Sure appreciate that. All the thoughts and the wisdom you bring to the discussion. And I thank all of our sponsors. You know, money makes the world go round, and it makes the Upland Nation podcast go round as well. Thank you to Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, Pointer Shotguns, Purina Pro Plan Sport Dog Food, Mid-Valley Clays, and True Lock Chokes. Appreciate all your support. Not just from you, but from you, the listener. Thanks again for being a part of the Upland Nation podcast. Until we talk again, maybe I'll see you at the range.